Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Oh yeah, to our English brothers and sisters out there, good afternoon. I keep forgetting you're in England too. It's like, wait. Clearly I need more coffee this morning, so
You can never have enough coffee. That is true.
not today. Not with the way the sinuses are treating me, but at least the weather is nice. How are things over on the other side of the pond?
Nice and sunny, but quite chilly. So autumn is definitely on the way.
I was going to say, it's officially autumn anyway, according to our calendars, so it may as well start getting chilly, right? It's going to be sunny and 85 here today, so it's like, well,
that's almost hoodie weather for you.
Almost, yeah. Another 10 degrees and we'll be freezing our asses off. So good morning out there, everybody in the chat. Let's see who all is hanging out with us, babe.
Absolutely.
Let's see. I know Nicole the Blind Mage was first in our chat this morning. So good morning, Nicole.
Good morning.
To see you. Darth Haster, our wrench, is here. Mary's Game Room. Good morning, sweetheart. Great to see you. Mr. Hyde. Scrolling. There's Nicole. I knew she was in there first. Purple Valkyrie. Hey, how about that?
Hey.
Who else have we got hanging out, hon?
We have got Lothrop. Good morning. We've got Jester of Sin. Hello, sweethearts. We've got Colin P. Smith, our other awesome wrench. Good morning, or good afternoon, rather. Who else we've got? Darth Monkey Oraf. Good morning to you.
Yep.
Nancy. Hello. Hello, V-Star. Hey, sweetheart.
Good morning, V. Good to see you, honey. Been missing you. Glad to see you back out and about again. Snort number one, yes.
We're starting early today.
I know, right? Lack of coffee. I think that's what it is. I just got a bad case of the sillies.
It's Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday. Yeah. I think I saw Psycho Dwarf 9 loose in here somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got Teleroff A. We've got Curie. Hey there. And the boss. Good morning, Loki. Great show.
Good morning,
Chris
boss.
Persia. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Chris. I just saw Dave Bob pop in.
There's Paulie. That was such a fun show last night. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we had a blast. Didn't we? We had so much fun. Then the Prez was on.
We really did.
My god. Ah.
And good morning, Crimson Mist, and good afternoon, Derek McManus. Hey guys.
How is everybody today? Everybody doing all right? It's Friday, folks. End of the week. Good morning, Adega. How are you, Doc? Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
And Rookie Critic just eases in under the line. Everybody's here. Cool. Should we bring in our guests for the day?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
Okay. We got Colin P. Smith. Good morning, Colin, or good afternoon, as the case may be.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Hello, love.
And Generalissimo Hefe joining us live from the road. Hi, hon.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hola, everybody. I say hola. I'm in a part of the country that doesn't exactly appreciate that. But anyway.
That's all right. You're in your room.
Yeah.
It's self-imposed silence. That's okay. So we're going to talk about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table.
Yes, absolutely. So this is kind of where you guys kind of shine, isn't it? Because you definitely bring the knowledge with this. I think the subject kind of came about after that awful bloody curse that we were talking about, and we just got so angry about how it had been kind of twisted.
Yeah. Colin's grunting.
Colin's reaching for his anti-curse arrows.
But yeah, the curse was, oh god, it was not good.
That was,
yeah. Jeff did several head slaps during the show.
I still haven't watched it.
Oh,
Don't.
I have no intention of either.
consider yourself blessed if you haven't seen Cursed.
Right?
Yes.
But you guys even read the book as well, didn't you? And just to see how close it actually came.
Well, I've started reading it, and so far, nope.
Oh, damn.
I mean, the art is pretty good, but because it's the same Frank Miller type art, of course. You know, the bumps between scenes, which was great. That was about the only thing that was great about it. That and Gustav Skarsgård. That's all.
Yeah.
I still have got to try to reread. I still have got to make a concerted effort to read Mists of Avalon. I've never got more than a third of the way through that.
Oh, you know,
Yeah.
I've seen the TV show. I've never read it.
I haven't.
No.
I've got the TV show, but I haven't seen it. I want to watch it.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is, there's about a dozen other books, early prequels and sequels that she wrote, that Bradley wrote, and then after she passed away, one or two other authors wrote prequels, sequels.
But that's the thing with like the King Arthur's legend. There's so many authors that have kind of dipped into it. Who would you say has come the closest to the legend?
That's a very, very good question. I was thinking about this earlier on and yesterday. Actually, I can think of two. I use the word characters on the grounds of people, but I don't want to stress fiction or non-fiction, who have come anywhere near close to the public consciousness as King Arthur. One of them was for approximately a third of the world, the son of the entity that created the entire universe and had a carpentry business in the Middle East, somewhere around the early 1st century AD. Initials JC. And the other person, again, please no insult intended to anybody who believes it. I'm simply referring to the influence and public knowledge, if you like, of Christ. And the other one will be Robin Hood. Possibly the only other figures got any, and Robin Hood comes nowhere near close to King Arthur. I mean, I know you ladies are gonna have to cut this short. So the short answer is King Arthur's legend. You can follow King Arthur's legend from about 500 AD to 3000 AD.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. That's a short version. 3000 AD being Camelot, 3000, being 3000 AD, a series of comics. I'm gonna have to be careful. I might start quoting Professor Dorsey Armstrong a few times here because one of my major influences was her History, King Arthur, Myth and Legend series of lectures. But I mean, the thing is, it changes. This is what amazes me about this more than anything else. I think in one of her lectures, she describes it as a black hole. It gathers everything into it. It starts. I mean, I was watching. I caught a little bit of an old. What was the story behind King Arthur from probably from the 70s by the looks of the film? And when I was bringing things like going all the way back to the Stone Age myths and mythical figures, some of which I get brought into the king. So I just realised what I'm doing with my hands, and I'm not on camera. My hands are. If anybody this side remembers Magnus Pike, my hands are making me look a little bit like Magnus Pike's hands. He waved a lot. He did. He was an old gentleman, a very enthusiastic, an early science presenter, an early version of Carl Sagan or Neil deGrasse Tyson for my American colleagues. But it starts off the earliest incarnations, if you like, of Arthur. Effectively comes sometime around just after the Roman legions leave England.
Yeah.
when you've got the when King Vortigern, the Roman legions have gone. They've gone for about 50, 60 years, I think, by this point. And what you get is you get Rome's having its own problems. It's shrinking in on itself. At least in the West, the Eastern Empire is completely different. Basically, this is when you start getting the Saxons, the Angles, the Jutes, a lot of these people coming into Britain, which was Christian, unlike a lot of Northern Europe still. It was Christian. It's slipping back to that into what we call sorry, I'm going to have to use this phrase, the Dark Ages. Horrible phrase, early medieval period, much better for it. But what we know is the Dark Ages and the reason they're dark. There's no we mentioned on the stream about Rome, shrinking in itself, governments going, and there's no real soldiers, there's no real military that can actually keep off these raiders. If you think what it's like in the where they raid England in the Vikings, it's like that, only no standing army, no Anglo-Saxon army to defend it. So what Vortigern, I think it is, does is he goes and he hires two brothers, supposedly legend knows them as Hengist and Horsa, to come over to this country and defend against the invaders. Of course, he has then brought the only people who can hold off the invaders, and these people now decide they want to settle, which is why you get the Anglo-Saxons come in, and that's when we get our first picture of an Arthur-type figure. 12 battles ending in the Battle of Mount Badon. There is apparently archaeological evidence that you can draw a line down the middle of England. They never really got much up into Scotland, this one. But and there's about a 50-year gap when the Anglo-Saxons are pushing the Celts out. Oh, sorry, the Britons, the Britons, not the Britons, Britons out. And it stops. There's this line down the middle where it stops for 50 years and then gets pushed back a bit. And then evidence says it carries on, goes on again. So something stopped them. I believe the earliest mention of King Arthur is in the 8th century, is in Nennius. And the line is something about a king who had lots of victories, but he was no Arthur. That's the first mention we have of King Arthur.
So when do we think King Arthur probably existed? Is it in that 50-year gap?
Yeah, probably. I mean, the most likely historical time for that to start. If he probably wasn't a king, certainly wasn't a king. If he was a single person, he would have been a warlord.
Yeah,
a fighter leader.
Yes. That's what I was going to ask you guys. Do you think he was an amalgamation of people, or do you think he was one person?
That becomes super interesting because, just like Colin said, Nennius in one of his poems refers to another king saying, "But he was no Arthur."
Yeah,
which implies that everybody at the time knew who Arthur was.
Yeah.
This is in the 800s, or sorry, the 8th century.
Yeah.
Arthur would have lived historically right around 500 AD.
Okay.
That was his thing. I think the Battle of Badon was about 530 AD, and Badon is when supposedly Arthur died. When you look at it, at the time, was Arthur a real person or was it amalgamation?
Yeah. That's what Darth Haster just said, an amalgamation of people.
Yeah. And it's one of those where the Britons needed a hero to rally behind because, Vortigern made the worst deal in the history of deals, bringing over
Yeah.
Orsa.
Didn't he just?
I mean, literally. So you have England, you have Britain. England didn't exist yet. You have Britain. The Roman legions all pull out. So now you have this entire island full of farmers. Vortigern goes, hey, we need some soldiers to help protect us in case any bad military comes in. Brings in Hengist and Horsa, who are like, ripe for the pickings much? Take over. So Arthur was the Briton who fought back against Hengist and Horsa, who fought back against these Anglo-Saxon Jutes. Danes, yes, there were Danes that were definitely part of this earlier group. They were not what we would today classify as Vikings, but they were definitely in the same part of the world.
I was going to say, you hear from two different shows, you hear Vikings, of course, Vikings, but you also hear Danes in the Last Kingdom. And it's like, are they the same people?
Yeah. So 300 years later, you have Nennius referring to an Arthur-type figure. And I think that, yes, you probably had one warlord who was fighting back, who rallied some troops and was named Arthur or something very similar to it, whatever the Britain equivalent of Arthur is.
Yeah.
But you also probably had some other battles, some other, fighting back, some other groups who were fighting back against the incoming Anglo-Saxons who had no name leaders. They were little one-offs, they were little anonymous tribes. And over the course of the 300 years between Arthur and Nennius, those were just lumped in with Arthur. Those battles were given to Arthur to help enhance his prestige.
Would you say it's fair to kind of think of Arthur as like the precursor to the patron saints that we had later on, as a symbol for people to rally around?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think that, as a Texan, remember the Alamo. As a Briton, how many Britons went into battle over the course of the following millennia, for Arthur, for England, for that great vision in their head of what Arthur stood for. It became what you were fighting for. And yes,
the other thing is,
has those myths that for soldiers to rally around. And yes, I very much agree. I think that's what he became.
Well, the other thing, of course, is that something I hadn't realised until I heard it in one of these lectures or read it in one of the books, that all of a sudden, in the records of the royal families around that existed in various little mini kingdoms, you never hear of an Arthur. All of a sudden, in one generation, almost every family has an older son called Arthur. He just suddenly appears into. There's something which I think we in the modern day almost can't imagine. There's which is a slight digression here, but there's a formula which is, if I remember right, 1 to 14 to 21, and it's basically a distance and travel formula. And the time it takes you to travel distance-wise by boat in one day, if you're doing that on land by horse, it's a week, and by foot, it's 3 weeks, or something roughly around those ones. Which is why, for example, the Bretons in Brittany speak Breton, because the Britons bugger off chased off by the Anglo-Saxons, and they sailed south, and that is nearer by boat to, say, Wales, for example, or Cornwall, than London is by foot or even by horse. So it is quick. You can get a message quicker by boat from Brittany to Cornwall than you can from London to Cornwall or Canterbury to Cornwall. Yeah, and that's something that in this day and age we almost can't even imagine.
Yeah, and to go back on a point you brought up earlier, I think that is one of the things that leads to a lot of the historicity of Arthur, is the fact that in the 600s, all these royal families come out of nowhere naming their children Arthur. You know, you got a name that basically doesn't exist before the late 500s, early 600s, and now all of a sudden every noble has a kid named Arthur.
I mean, the thing is, it just goes on from there. I mean, that's what I was saying about it being a black hole. It gathers on, it goes up. He turns up in Jeffe Monmouth. You then come up about 800 years later, 700-800 years later, when you get into the high, you've got the Norman period, and you get up with Henry II. Henry II, during Henry II's reign, Glastonbury Abbey happens to discover a grave, and there is drawings, but I don't believe there's any actual photographic evidence, I'm not sure, of a stone, a large cross-shaped stone, and the writing on it.
I don't think there's photographic evidence from Henry II's reign. No.
No. I mean, this thing supposedly existed up until the early 20th century.
Yeah.
But there's only ever a picture of one side of it, and one side of it says in Latin, "Here lies Arthur in the Isle of Avalon with his second Queen Guinevere," and the other side is supposed to have some more writing on it. But the only depictions ever exist are of that one side of it. But it's been worked out. No, Chris, it wasn't a Loki stone. Then again, he is a god of mischief, so you never know. I did actually manage to dig up. I looked at, I dug up a couple of illustrations of this. But then again, oddly enough, King Arthur was coming back in. Chivalry was starting to be a thing, and the monastery needed money, so odd that they found this. Yeah. But then you get Henry II marries the lady who had just divorced the King of France, supposedly because he was more of a monk than a husband, let us say, despite the fact they got daughters. The lady in question was one Eleanor, of a little place in southern France called Aquitaine.
Yeah.
Just a tiny little place. The fact that she then brought in, and after she married Henry VIII, the Plantagenets then owned the western half of what is now France. But the main impact she has on the Arthurian thing is Aquitaine was very, I hate to use the word, but very progressive for its period, for its time. Hence the fact that she was able to divorce the king, despite the fact she was a woman. And when she divorced the king, she took all her lands with her, which is what Henry got. Aquitaine borders on the Pyrenees and on Spain. You've got a lot coming up there from the jongleur tradition, the troubadour tradition, a lot of romance in the romantic poets sense of the word. The romance stories, very wide using the word romance because it also means anything descended from Roman and Romance languages and Latin languages.
Yeah.
But they bring it up, so that's where you get chivalry starts coming in, and a lot of stories come up there. And again, they get dragged in. Okay, we'll give that one a seat at the round table. In fact, that's Not sure if that's when the round table comes in or not. But Merlin comes in through another source. Igraine, not Igraine, Yvain, Galahad, lots of these ones, they come in from various other sources.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was the 12th century where Lancelot and the Holy Grail and that was added as well.
Yeah.
I think that was the French writer, de Troyes.
Chrétien de Troyes definitely brought. Imagine that, Lancelot, the greatest soldier in the land, in Britain, is French. Yeah, I think that one was brought in by a French writer.
Yeah, interestingly, he's the one who then goes and has an affair with the Queen. Typical bloody French.
Exactly.
And that ended so well for everyone, didn't it?
So, and you look at this, and it is interesting to watch the history of the Arthur legend. Originally it was battles. It was, the great doings of things. Somebody came in and you had to fight them, and you had to, beat these people and destroy them, and rah stuff. And then the French get a hold of it. It turns into a bunch of freaking love stories. Yes,
like Twilight.
Yes, the whole concept of
courtly love, or was someone one of her?
Then, the whole chivalry really kicks in. Chivalry didn't exist in, back when we were talking Geoffrey of Monmouth, we were talking the early writers, the Britain writers. None of them did the fancy love stuff. They were like, let's go out and slay dragons and kill people and defend our lands. There was no Lancelot. None of that stuff existed, but then you let the French get a hold of it, and suddenly it's all about higher love and courtly love and unrequited love and going out on the classic knights in shining armor, waving their patron's handkerchief and all that stuff.
Yeah, or as one of Doris Johnson's students put it, courtly love, a complete waste of time.
Yeah, and you do get people like Galahad who come around in. Galahad was the son of Lancelot. Galahad was probably the most boring ass knight ever because if there was ever any question of doing the right thing, Galahad did the right thing. There was no conflict within him. There was no questions. Lancelot at one point, there's a great story where Lancelot is going along and he's trying to do the right thing. And he sees these two armies fighting, and one army in white and one army in black. And the army in white is beating the army in black. Just roundly smashing them. So Lancelot goes, well, I have to defend the weak. That's the chivalrous thing to do. I don't know what's going on here, but I have to defend. So he chips in on the side of the black army, fights back, they win, woohoo, all is great because Lancelot's the greatest ever. Well, it turns out that the whole thing was a metaphor set up by God, because that's what God does in these. And the white army was the army of God, and the black army was the army of the devil. So
of course it was.
And being imperfect, Lancelot makes mistakes. And we accept this, and you can get a certain level of humanity out of him. Galahad would never have made that mistake. Galahad was too fucking perfect. You just want to smack him.
Galahad would make a Mary Sue look like a well thought out, complicated character.
Oh man, that's pretty bad.
Yes.
So what do you do? So and of course we all know that Galahad is the one who ultimately found the Holy Grail. He's, as soon as he lays eyes on the Grail, poof, ascended up to heaven, all this great stuff, because he is so perfect. Galahad is very, if you want to play the Arthur is Jesus card, Galahad is Mary. Galahad is the perfect, that, you know, there is no dirt, there's no soil, there's no mark, there's no original sin on him. He is perfect. So, yeah, hashtag Galahad is Mary.
I think the interesting one, I think one of the things that actually encapsulates in some ways the chivalry, the high chivalry, the courtly love, is one of the main sources for Lancelot is one of the earliest ones is Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart, and basically, basic story is Guinevere's been kidnapped. Lancelot's going off to help her, to fight her, to rescue her. And at one point, he's lost. He's walking, and he is offered a chance to sit in the back of the cart for a ride. Now, this sitting in a cart, the only thing people in carts is when they're carried to their execution. Right? It is unbelievably dishonourable. So he thinks for a second, then thinks, no, I must find the Queen, jumps on the back. 300 pages later, you know, it's a long, like most of these poems. Basically, eventually, Guinevere finds out about this and she has a hissy fit. Not because he sat on the cart, but because he hesitated. You know, but because he hesitated for...
You know, everybody thinks Guinevere is this wonderful because, you know, we all saw Camelot, you know, the play, you know, the musical, and we love Julie Andrews, and we adore Julie Andrews, and we put in this mind Julie Andrews, and with Mary Poppins and who was she in Crud?
Mary. Oh God, Maria.
Maria, yes, Maria. All of this stuff, and so we associate Guinevere as being wonderful. Again, you know, once you start really looking at some of these characters, Guinevere was, again, she was a lot.
She was a handful.
Her biggest complaint was not that Lancelot. Lancelot totally debased himself for her. He was, you know, riding around like a criminal, like a convicted criminal, just to try to help her. But because he took one step away, saying no, before he immediately turned around and said yes, now all of a sudden the entire gesture is worthless. I mean, come on. And you know what? And that is one of the, you know, you raised a point earlier about the cross that was laid in Glastonbury that they found, that has always been curious to me, is that there was a statement on it, here lies Arthur, King of the Britons, with his second wife, Guinevere.
So that asks the question, who was the first?
I've never gotten that. Now, is it his both wives were named Guinevere and that he remarried? You know? His first wife. I have never heard a story about who his first wife was. And it's one of those things that, like you said, you know, it does make there are several things that make the Glastonbury tie very questionable. One of them is the fact that it was written in the wrong format. It used if you were to have buried someone in 530 AD, they used a slightly different version of Latin than was used in the 1200s when Henry II, you know, when the Glastonbury folks came out and said, hey, we've got this. It's a different form of Latin, and guess what? It was written in the form of Latin that came out in the 1200s, not from the 500s. But why the hell second queen?
It suggests, amongst other things, of course, that we have lost a lot, or that we've lost some story.
That's
I
a
mean,
good.
because
Yeah.
you look at, was it Jeffrey who quoted an earlier Welsh source, which was then lost, and there is still debate whether he was just making it up as a
Yes.
as a literal as a literature
Yeah.
archetype.
Making them out of whole cloth, basically. But
No,
yeah,
as
definitely.
done at the time, you
Yeah.
know, referred to a novel, or was it an old book that's been lost? I seem to recall seeing somewhere actually that Guinevere was quite a popular name as well, so he may well have been. He may actually have had two queens both called Guinevere. We don't know.
But yeah, because Geoffrey of Monmouth did, when he wrote it, he claims that it was a translation of an earlier book that was since lost. And you do have a good point as well that it was Welsh. When you look at the history of Britain, the Saxons, as they were coming in, all obviously came in from the East Coast and worked their way across. And the last strongholds of the Britons were Wales and Cornwall. You know, for the Americans on here, Cornwall is that little foot going off to the southwest of England. So that was the last bit that they were able to defend. Oddly enough, so because of that, most of the stories are Welsh because Arthur was effectively their local hero fighting back. And also Welsh, the language Welsh is very similar to the language that's spoken in Brittany. You know, and as Colin mentioned, you know, that part of the world, that part of the era was much closer related to Brittany than it was to London because, you know, it was a day by boat or, you know, a month and a half walking.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny to look back now and see that, you know, the language spoke in Brittany is very similar to Welsh, which is very similar to all these old stories in the Old English. The English that's spoken in the bulk of England now is more heavily influenced by the Germanic, you know, the Anglos, the Saxons, the Danes, all of them that came in and took it over. So if you want to be truly British, you're speaking Welsh.
Yes,
that's too many W's and Y's I can't explain in a word.
Yeah. It's extremely ironic, of course, really, that King Arthur, hero of the English, made his name fighting against the Angles, who became the English. He actually fought against the early English because the English were the Angles, where you get Anglerland or Englerland comes in. You talk about Camelot. I remember the film, so it's Vanessa Redgrave for me rather than
Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews.
Yeah.
But one interesting thing is, of course, that Camelot is based in part on
T.H. White.
On Mallory, and also on Mallory. And that, if you remember, at the end of the certainly the end of the film, where you've got Richard Harris turns around and tells his kid who wants to fight, no, don't fight, you go and tell the story. And he then breaks into song that once there was a spot, etc. That kid's name is Tom. That's supposedly Thomas Mallory, self-inserting himself, if you like. Because Mallory comes up with this in the 13th century. When he's Mallory comes up with the Morte d'Arthur when he's in prison, accused of a variety of offences, including not asking consent of the ladies, shall we say. In the real sense of the word, rather than "oh, sorry, I brushed your shoulder in the crowd, therefore cry out." In the real sense of the word. probably pretty cool. And he comes up with this, and he comes up as well as in prison. And that's probably, I mean, Lamort d'Arthur is actually not the name of the book. It's called that, but originally it was just one of, I think, 3 or 4 parts of one whole work. And then the next thing you really get is T.H. White, as you say, Jeff, Once and Future King, famously done by Disney. But then of course you get, as has been alluded to several times in chat, a certain movie by a certain English comedy troupe has been described by at least one American's kind of probably one of the best depictions of medieval England she's ever seen. And it's a fantastic movie, apart from the car park at the end where the police come in. But that's obviously where so many people know. But I think the really interesting is it goes on is apparently there's a lot of excitement when you get the early 2000s film with Clive Owen called King Arthur, the one with Keira Knightley. That's the one. Thank you.
Is that the one? Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I just saw these pop into the chat.
Yeah, notice that it's spelled, how they spell Arthur is Arturis, A-R-T-U-R-I-S.
Isn't that Roman?
Well, Arthur was Roman, but he would have been Arturus, U-S.
Arturus.
Yeah, the I-S is a bastardization that would have come in well after the 500s.
Okay.
That would have come in, so about the time and what is it? What was the year on that stone? I didn't see it. I want to say it's like 1200, 1300.
It's got to be 1200s if it was
I
the second.
think it's about the 1200s. Yeah.
No, it's not the one you're showing there. It's look at the ones where you see the letters. Yeah, those are. That's a drawing that was made of it contemporary to when it was found.
Yes, there isn't a really great kind of shot of the original cross. So
I'm not sure when it is. But there was one other. There is of course one other film which we really can't go without mentioning, with Helen Mirren and
love that movie.
Excalibur, which incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, Excalibur was not the sword in the stone.
No.
Excalibur was given to King Arthur by the Lady in the Lake.
Yep.
However, what a lot of people who aren't fanatical Arthurians may not know is the end of the story. Because after the Battle of Camelot, Baden, whichever, Arthur lies dying, and he's near a lake, and he knows he can't be buried. He's made a big mistake. Everybody knows Excalibur. Everyone forgets the scabbard. The scabbard would prevent any mortal wound. Whoever holds the scabbard cannot be killed. Arthur thrown the scabbard away years ago. He's now dying after the battle. He can't die until Excalibur's returned to the Lady of the Lake. He's got Bedivere traditionally beside him, and he tells Bedivere, "Go over that hill to that lake, throw the sword away." Bedivere goes over the hill, stands there for a second, and he thinks he's torn, because he's talking to his loyalty to the king, thinking, but this is Excalibur. This is the most powerful weapon in the world. Think of all the good it can do. And he thinks, and he hides it behind a tree, and he goes back, and Arthur says, "What happened?" And Bedivere says, "I saw the sword, and I saw a flight of swans." And Arthur thinks, "No, you're telling porkies." So Bedivere goes back, but same thing happens. He still can't do it, and he goes back into Arthur, some other waffle. And Arthur says, no, go and throw it in the lake. And this time, third time, which incidentally, if you're looking for a Christ and Arthur connection, tonight or doing something 3 times sounds vaguely familiar to me, St. Peter. He goes back and he throws it in the lake, and he comes back and he says, Arthur says, what happens? Arthur says, well, I thought it was something, and then the water's parted in this hand and arm, and a sleeve of pure white samite silk reached up, and the sword just went to it. And in fact, you can almost imagine it's a reverse, the sort of thing where you reverse the picture, someone throwing the sword, reverse it, try to catch it, and it goes over the lake. And Excalibur is taken back to the Lady Lake. And Arthur then knows that's the truth. At which point, he is then taken to the lake, and coming out of the mist on the lake is a boat. And on the boat, there are traditionally either 3 or 9, traditionally queens. And they take.
Okay, we're going to have to hold it there, Colin, because the Valkyries have got to ride.
Can you give me 2 minutes?
Okay, 2, go.
And Arthur is taken onto this boat and he disappears into the mists. Tradition said, and no one sees him die. And tradition says that he's taken to Avalon, where he will be healed. Which, of course, as every true Brit knows, and excuse me, my voice is starting to crack here. Arthur didn't die. Tradition says he's asleep.
Yes.
And he's awake when we need him.
Yes, yes. So when Britain is in need.
Yes, indeed, people. He is actually woken up in 3rd day in the 3000 Camelot 3000 AD comic.
And on that note, guys,
Part 2.
Into part 2, and we'll pick this up another Friday, Thursday or Friday soon, or Wednesday or Friday soon. Because the Valkyries have got to go fly over to Lorena's lunch table. So, boys, thank you so much for joining us today. Jeff, safe travels. I'll see you tonight.
Yep.
Colin, thank you so
guys.
much for all your knowledge. You guys are wonderful. So, everybody, take care. We will see you on Monday. Some of you, we will see you later on a special live stream with Loki, Loki's Mornings of Mischief. He's doing a members live stream, so that ought to be fun. What else do we got going on, honey?
We've got the movie watch night tomorrow also.
Oh, yeah. Movie
on
night.
Loki's channel.
What are we watching?
Yeah. Forbidden Planet.
That's right. I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to be on the panel. I can't even remember what we're watching, but okay, you guys, have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you around the web, and we'll see you Monday morning for Rise and Shine with the Valkyries at 10 o'clock. So, bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Jeff.
Bye, everybody.
Welcome, Purple. Anytime. Bye.